Welcome everyone, I am Adesewa Josh and this is Africa Matters. We begin in Ethiopia where the government says its forces have retaken a city in southern Tigray just days after rebels announced a retreat from the Amhara and Afar regions. Billene Seyoum, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed's spokesperson, joins me for an exclusive interview from the capital, Addis Ababa. And we go to Nigeria where kidnapping for ransom is an increasingly common threat. We speak to one family about their traumatic ordeal at the hands of captors. We'll also profile South African women who are changing the landscape of entrepreneurship by building successful businesses. On Monday, the Tigrayan People's Liberation Front announced plans to withdraw from the neighboring regions of Amhara and Afar, calling for a ceasefire and talks to end the 13-month civil war. Back in October, the TPLF had called for the withdrawal of federal troops from the regions as a precondition for ending hostilities and negotiating with the government. The government says the TPLF's withdrawal announcement is a cover for military setbacks. But in a letter to the UN, the TPLF leader, Debretsion Gebremichael, said the decision was in response to the unanimous international call to withdraw TPLF troops from neighboring regions. He also asked the Security Council to consider imposing a no-fly zone for hostile flights over Tigray and an arms embargo on the federal government of Ethiopia and Eritrea. In December, the UN Human Rights Council agreed to launch an international investigation into rights abuses allegedly committed by both sides of the conflict. The Ethiopian government and 13 other countries on the council opposed the resolution, saying it's counterproductive and is likely to exacerbate tensions. Meanwhile, the U.S. has welcomed the TPLF's plans to retreat from Amhara and Afar as a step in the right direction.
So in fact, if we do see a movement of Tigrayan forces back into Tigray, that is something we would welcome. It's something we've called for, and we hope it opens the door to broader diplomacy.
The Ethiopian State Minister Redwan Hussein says officials will begin an inclusive national dialogue that could lead to a referendum and a constitutional amendment. He says the TPLF, which it considers a terrorist organization, is welcome to join under certain conditions.
So if TPLF ready to hand over like a bunch of its criminals, the central core, and then things might be different. Now it's not for me to tell what might happen, but there are a number of possibilities depending on what might happen in the coming few months and few weeks, where our operation would keep on pushing these elements and how they would also embrace that they are not going to dominate or they are not going to capture Addis.
The UN says more than 9.4 million people are at risk of food insecurity in northern Ethiopia, and more than half of them are in Tigray. It remains to be seen if the TPLF will follow through and return its forces to Tigray. But much will also depend on how Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed chooses to respond. Let's hear more from the Prime Minister's spokesperson, Billene Seyoum. She joins me from Ethiopia's capital, Addis Ababa. Thank you so much for making out time. I can imagine how busy you are at this time. So my first question will be, are we likely to see peace negotiations involving the TPLF now that it has withdrawn troops from the contested regions?
This is not an engagement of equals, and we've been saying that before. For others, it might be viewed that way, but for the Ethiopian government, for the Ethiopian people, TPLF as a terrorist organization designated accordingly by the constitution is a threat to the integrity of the nation as well. So thwarting of that threat has always been a focus, and it's not prerequisites that a designated terrorist organization will bring to the table for dialogue or for negotiations to happen, but the rule of law operations that the government of Ethiopia is mandated to undertake needs to be seen through. So what comes as a result of this clearing process and the prerequisites and the other preconditions for any kind of outcome to or this for lasting.
So Billene, let me just come in here. So the Ethiopian government will not negotiate with the TPLF, withdrawal or not, and we don't know if this war is officially over.
I don't think it's as simple as putting it as negotiations with a designated terrorist organization is going to bring this war over or not. Like I said, it has been important to safeguard the people of Amhara and Afar regions and the broader Ethiopian from territorial disintegrity that the TPLF have been a culprit to. So at this point in time, like I said, the focus is ensuring that they're cleared out of there. What comes as a result out of that is the onus is again on the TPLF because for the international community, they are saying that they want to undertake a ceasefire, that they want a peaceful resolution. But just 2 weeks ago, or even a week ago, they were claiming that they were in the hinterlands or the inner parts of the Amhara region and that they still wanted to move forward. So this disparity in terms of their narrative is something that is not trustworthy. But as far as the Ethiopian government, which is mandated to protect the nation, is concerned, clearing them off totally out of these regions is important. There are other mechanisms that are being put in place to ensure that they do not continue to be a threat to the peace and stability of the country.
Let me come in here, Billene. I hear you loud and clear. There will be no negotiations with the TPLF. But you know, some in the international community want accusations of rights abuses by both the government and Tigray forces investigated by an independent team led by the UN. This is what Nada Al-Nashif, the UN Deputy Commissioner for Human Rights, had to say about that resolution. Let's listen.
The onus is on the state to discharge its primary responsibility to deliver fair and independent proceedings that address the full range of violations identified, not only isolated individual instances, and to take into consideration applicable command responsibility. Without significant accountability efforts, an international mechanism could be an important complement.
Can the Ethiopian government be trusted to conduct a free and fair investigation into the allegations and hold perpetrators to account, even if it stands accused?
I need to backtrack a little bit and ensure that there is clarity because there are, I don't want it to be outside, to be construed as the Ethiopian government or the Ethiopian people not wanting a peaceful resolution to this. But there are certain preconditions that the Ethiopian government will put forward when it's due time. Now, responding to your question in terms of is the Ethiopian government willing and committed to an independent investigation, this is a track record that the Prime Minister has set forth early in the conflict as well. Rightly, when you had also introduced earlier, the human rights entity or responsible body within the UN had initiated these independent investigations together with the Ethiopian Human Rights Commission sometime in March, which by November they had concluded and provided the results, which did also hold accountable, yes, government, certain elements of the government forces for having committed human rights abuses. The Prime Minister and the Ethiopian government accepted this with reservations and facilitated or created a joint mechanism or an interministerial task force was also launched to look into the recommendations that had been fought through this recommendation. So that commitment is there. The commitment has never wavered, and the Ethiopian government has got nothing to hide in this regard.
Right. But Billene, the question is, if you stand accused, if the federal government, federal forces stand accused, as well as the TPLF, do you not think it's important to recuse yourself and allow an independent team? Now, where they come from is up to both the government and the regional organizations and perhaps the international community, talking about the UN and your Western allies, to decide who leads these investigations. But do you think that the Ethiopian government should still lead an investigation into an allegation that touches on its conduct throughout this war?
The Ethiopian government has not been involved in undertaking this investigation. The Ethiopian Human Rights Commission is an independent body. As part of the democratization process that Ethiopia embarked on 3 years ago, it was inherent to the way that the Ethiopian Human Rights Commission was restructured outside of TPLF influence before, which was partisan to the TPLF's meanderings and will. But the Ethiopian Human Rights Commission is independent of the government. So we should not misconstrue it as a body that is subservient to the federal government.
You agree with me, this is a great time to support the people who actually haven't contributed to this war, but they are suffering the most.
They have been supported, and let's not make it seem that the people of Tigray are being punished by the government.
I'm not referring to just the Tigrayans. I'm talking about the 9.4 million people, not just in northern Tigray, but also, as you have mentioned, in Afar and Amhara. Just the people who need humanitarian aid, the people in the middle of this political crisis, this crisis.
Yeah, assistance is being delivered, and we have to take note. I mean, this is something that we've been continuously providing updates on, including from the UN, and they have also been providing updates in terms of movement of trucks within the Tigray region, assistance for the affected individuals and communities within the Afar and the Amhara regions as well. There is still a requirement for a lot of partners to come on board and ensure that those beneficiaries who are in dire need of humanitarian assistance all across the board are sufficiently provisioned in this regard as well. So the government also from its covers has been allocating a lot of funds, has been buying a lot of assistance materials, and has been at the forefront of, providing this assistance. And not only the government, but average Ethiopians within the country, Ethiopians within the diaspora as well, who have been mobilizing resources to support this end.
Well, thank you so much, Billene Seyoum, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed's spokesperson. We have more stories coming up for you here on Africa Matters, including...
I am Palum David. I'll take a look at Nigeria's booming kidnapping industry and ask what, if anything, is being done to put an end to it.
Since Burundi gained independence in 1962, the East African nation has been plagued by ethnic violence, long-simmering tensions between the country's two main ethnic groups, the Hutus and the Tutsis, boiled over in 1972. It's estimated that between 100,000 and 300,000 Hutu people were killed in a shocking massacre. And on Monday, a Burundi government commission found that the massacre of Hutus by the then Tutsi-dominated government was indeed an act of genocide. Kubra Hakoch has the story.
The 1972 mass killings in Burundi is described by some as the darkest chapter of history for the East African nation. And now the final findings of a Burundi government commission, which was set up in 2018 to investigate the killings, have been released.
Considering all the data, witness testimonies and laws, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission qualifies what happened in 1972 and in 1973 as a crime of genocide committed against the Hutu people.
The Commission also says crimes against humanity had been committed against ethnic Tutsis during the same period. The Commission's chairperson says after 3 years of investigation, the Commission has found remains of 19,000 people in 200 mass graves. Burundi, a former German colony, was under Belgian rule until 1962 when it gained its independence. But the country has been rocked by ethnic tensions and civil war ever since. Tensions flared in 1972 when the Tutsi-dominated government and army carried out a series of mass killings against Hutus. It is believed between 100,000 and 300,000 people were massacred. Witnesses who gave evidence to the Burundi Commission say that every night in the months of May and June in 1972, Hutus who were serving time in prison were put in trucks and sent to the banks of the Ruvubu River, where they were killed and dumped in pits. But the Commission's finding has sparked controversy many times before and has been accused of leaning towards one ethnic group. Some Tutsi politicians say these latest findings are one-sided and that the violence was mutual. Kubra Hakoch, TRT World.
Nigeria is experiencing what some are calling a kidnapping epidemic. Most severe in the north of the country, it has now spread to other regions, and the government is under increasing pressure to address the issue. It's estimated around 2,000 people have been kidnapped across the country this year. And while many have been released, some never return home. In this report, Palum David takes a look at how people in Nigeria are coping.
Gunmen broke into the home of 9-year-old Divine Ubom in Nigeria's capital Abuja in November. They kidnapped the sleeping boy along with his 16-year-old sister Ayo and their mother. The kidnappers demanded a ransom of more than $700,000, but fortunately, They were rescued after 2 days by security operatives without paying a cent. The young boy says his experience with the kidnappers was extremely traumatic.
My legs were all sore. I almost became blind because all these pointy plantations have entered this eye here. So when they now entered, my eye was now doing me like this. So it was now paining me. So my legs became sore. So I was now walking slowly. I was now limping. Now I say, Muje, and I pointed gun at my neck. I said, if you don't walk, I'll shoot you here.
Little Divine says he now lives in constant fear.
Like if bandits can come to your own house at the middle of the night, enter your own house, carry out of your own gunmen out of your own house in the middle of the night, I'm living in fear.
Divine's mother, who was also abducted, says she's yet to recover from the shock. She reveals that the kidnappers also stole from them.
They took money, they took phones, they took laptops, they even carried the school bag. I wish they had even left the books inside.
The freedom with which kidnappers and gangs are operating within Nigeria is causing widespread anger and panic. Many are accusing President Buhari's administration of failing to address the situation.
The Nigerian police force say more than 1,200 kidnapping victims have been rescued this year, but hundreds of people are still in the hands of abductors, while 1,450 suspected kidnappers have been arrested this year.
What is your work? Me aikinka. Kidnapping. He said he's a kidnapper.
27-year-old Musa Ibrahim confessed that he kidnapped 6 people while wearing a fake military uniform and demanded about $1,500 in ransom. Analysts believe that rising unemployment and ransom payments by families and local governments are making kidnapping a lucrative business for some. Nigerian police spokesperson Frank Umba says aside from making these arrests, they have also intercepted thousands of weapons.
Within this year under review, we recovered a total of 1,787 assorted weapons. And I'm not just talking of locally fabricated weapons. I'm talking of AK-47, AK-49, and other weapons in the Kalashnikov family, including general-purpose machine guns. We also recovered over 41,000 rounds of live ammunition.
Kayode Bolaji, a security analyst, believes that the Nigerian police need to do more in stamping out these kidnapping gangs.
They are deficient in several ways: lack of technology, lack of manpower, lack of adequate training to be able to assess some of these facilities where these bandits and kidnappers are. So in general, we will need to look for new ways to tackle the issue of banditry, kidnapping, and crime generally in Nigeria.
Until then, hundreds more families are at risk of forcefully being taken away from their homes to face the ordeal that 9-year-old Divine, his sister and mother did. Palum David, Africa Matters, Abuja.
You're watching Africa Matters, and here's a roundup of other stories making news across the continent. A fight broke out in Ghana's parliament with several lawmakers throwing punches during a debate on a proposed electronic payments tax. The controversial bill would impose a 1.75% e-levy on mobile money transactions. The opposition has delayed passing the national budget since last month over the measure. Critics say the levy will hit lower-income people who rely heavily on mobile money transfers. In Nigeria, health authorities have destroyed more than 1 million expired COVID-19 vaccine doses. The head of the National Healthcare Development Agency has blamed vaccine nationalism in developed countries for hoarding supplies and only donating them when they are about to expire. Nigeria has seen a rise in shipments, but it's facing logistical challenges and vaccine hesitancy. And thanks to conservation efforts, mountain gorillas in Rwanda have been removed from the endangered species list. Their population at the Volcanoes National Park in Rwanda has grown into the hundreds, so much that the park is running out of space. The Rwandan government is planning to move around 4,000 farming households starting next year in order to extend the wildlife area. Despite a lack of capital, women are changing the rules of entrepreneurship in South Africa. According to the World Bank, only 3% of all early-stage investment in Africa in the last 8 years went to female-led startups. And because of historic disadvantages, the numbers are lower for black women. Nsepeng Potema reports from Johannesburg.
Mo Mukoni is on a routine site visit to one of her workshops. These craftsmen are completing the latest orders just in time for the holiday season. Mukoni runs a home decor company making ethical and sustainable houseware products. Some of its best sellers are laundry bins and planters made from recycled PVC water pipes salvaged from landfills and construction sites. She started the company with her sister in 2016 using their savings and haven't received any financial backing since.
We get to where we are in all the retail spaces by calling, by cold calling, by emailing, by following up every day. I mean, I have a target for myself where I send 50 emails a day.
In addition to their online store, the products are now sold by some of the biggest retailers in South Africa and the United States. A few months ago, at their warehouse, the Mokone sisters proudly packaged up a shipment for a major international client, the upscale American retail chain Crate & Barrel. But the pair says even with deals like those, the growth of their company is being held back by a lack of funding.
There's so many offers that we had to decline because we were not able to meet demand in terms of capacity, in terms of sustaining the production of whatever order it was.
According to the World Bank, although more than half of South Africa's population is female, only 34% of small and medium-sized enterprises are owned and operated by women.
Women here struggle with less access to capital and fewer assets than their male counterparts. Not owning property makes it harder for them to offer collateral for business loans. At the same time, South Africa mirrors the rest of the world when it comes to the low number of women working in the technology sector.
Entrepreneur Mukuni Rambani is continuously working on ways to improve her product. She is the founder of Ambani Africa, an educational app that teaches young children in African languages. She's also one of the few black women in the educational tech sector to have received significant seed funding.
Initial funding, whatever grant funding, whatever investment you can get is quite important and is really the difference between a business that can have longevity and a business that can make it and one that can't, particularly in this technology space where you do in fact need to be able to build certain technology in order to put it out there.
One of Rambani's favorite things to do is to explore the app with her nephew. She launched it in January as a gaming platform promoting the use of local languages. With access to funding, it's now grown into a multifaceted teaching resource that's attracting users of all ages around the world. The 33-year-old says for women-led businesses to receive better support from investors, more of those venture capitalists need to be women.
Not only in business do we need that change, but I think also in the VC space, the people that are selecting the businesses that get to be invested in, I think it's important that we also have women representation in that space as well.
That way, as South Africa and the African continent continue to see a boom in startups, the women who own them won't get left behind. Nsepeng Motema, Africa Matters, Johannesburg.
This week, we go to southern Africa and explore the town of Maun, often called the tourist capital of Botswana. That's because it's a transit hub into some of the most popular safari destinations on the continent. Let's take a closer look. That's our show this week. Please share your thoughts and suggestions about the stories you've seen on this episode or ideas of stories you would like us to cover on Twitter using the hashtag #AfricaMatters. Feel free to reach out to me on my personal handle at Adesewa Josh, and please watch us on YouTube. We'll leave you with these images from across the continent.